never planned on starting over in A-Town like this. After the divorce, I packed up what was left of my pride and moved to a quiet place near Flagstaff, Arizona, the kind of town where folks still wave from their porches and you can hear your own breath. In the cold air, I thought it would be a place to rebuild, to find steady ground again. But life doesn't slow down just because you need it to. And on that Wednesday morning, in late January, with snow crusted along the edges of my windshield and frost creeping up the corners of my bedroom window, my car decided it had had enough. No warning, no mercy, just a sputter, a hiss, and a quiet death in the grocery store parking lot. I had it towed to the only auto shop in town, Carter's Garage. People spoke of Mr. Carter in low tones. Former Marine lost his wife a few years, back always working, never smiling. He didn't seem the chatty type. And honestly, I didn't care. I just needed my car back. I needed to get to work. I needed something, anything to go right when it called. That afternoon his voice was dry, almost mechanical transmission shot brake lines too. You're looking at about 1-200. I didn't say anything at first, my throat tightened. 1200, he didn't repeat himself, just waited. My heart sank, I had maybe 200 in my checking. Account the credit card was maxed from last month's medical bills. I stared at the calendar on my fridge as if it might magically shift and give me more time, more money, more options. Is there any way we can split the payment? I asked, already knowing the answer. He paused, then said, "Not how I run things here, but we can talk about options if you really need that car tomorrow." That silence, that heavy-loaded silence, I should have hung up, should have said no, but instead I asked him what he meant. And when he said, "I'm not the kind to pressure a woman, but I'm also a man who notices when someone like you walks through my shop," something in me didn't flinch. I wish I could say I was shocked, but life after divorce has a funny way of rearranging your boundaries. You get tired of pretending you're okay, tired of waiting for help, that never comes tired of being proud, when proud doesn't pay the bills. So I said, "Let me think about it." And I did for hours until I found myself staring at my reflection, no makeup, and an old hoodie hair tied up and whispering to myself, "It's just one time, just one." I didn't call him back, I showed up, and when he opened the door to that tiny break room, behind the garage, he didn't say a word. He just stepped aside, letting me in. It smelled like engine grease and burnt coffee. A small couch with a torn armrest sat against the wall, and there was a dented microwave humming quietly on the counter like it had seen more late nights than people cared to admit. There were no candles, no soft music, just fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and the thick, unspoken weight of what we were both here for. Mr. Carter didn't look at me like a predator. There was no smirk, no arrogance. Just an older man standing in a gray t-shirt stained with time, trying to meet my eyes but not quite, knowing how you sure, he asked, not pushing, just confirming. I nodded, though I don't remember how firmly the truth is. I wasn't sure about anything, except that my options had run dry, and maybe deep down, I didn't want to feel like a victim of my own life anymore. He stepped forward, slow and careful. His hands were rough, but his touch was surprisingly gentle, as if he feared breaking me. And maybe that's what undid me, not the situation, but the care, the way he paused before every move, waiting to be told it was okay. There was no performance, no seduction, just breath and skin and the sound of my heartbeat, reminding me I was still alive. At first, I felt like I had stepped outside of myself, like I was watching another woman, someone braver or more reckless, undress in a room that had never seen anything intimate. But then something shifted. Maybe it was the way he whispered, "You don't owe me anything you don't want to give." More the way I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of the microwave, flushed breathing. Heavy, eyes half closed, and not ashamed, I let go. Not just of my clothes, but of the guilt, the exhaustion, the years of waiting for someone else's permission. To feel good, to feel needed, to feel seen, what happened next didn't feel transactional. It felt redemptive. I had expected something crude. What I found was something strangely quiet, unexpectedly tender, like two people stepping off the edge of their own routines, just for a night, just to feel human again. And when it was over, we didn't speak right away. He handed me a towel, poured 2 glasses of water, and sat beside me without touching. Just breathing. Just being outside snow. Was starting to fall again inside for the first time in a very long time. I felt warm. It wasn't just the heat of our bodies that lingered in the air. It was something heavier, something quieter. A shared understanding that we'd both in different ways stopped asking for permission to need. I didn't get dressed right away. He sat across from me on that old couch, elbows on knees, eyes down. You don't have to say anything. He said I wasn't expecting. Hell, he wasn't even hoping. I just figured. Maybe we were both tired of pretending we don't need things. I walked over, slowly sat beside him, my thigh brushed against his, and he froze, like a teenager caught stealing a glance. I took his hand. It was calloused and warm, and it trembled just slightly. You didn't take anything from me, I whispered. I gave it. That's when something in him broke open. He cupped the back of my neck, not pulling, just holding. I leaned in, resting my forehead against his breath-to-breath chest. Tokes, no rush, no script. And then we kissed, not like 2 people trading favors, like 2 people finding a language they had forgotten. They knew we didn't rush to undress again this time. It was slower, bolder. I climbed onto his lap, his hands finding their way around my waist like muscle memory. He whispered, things not vulgarities, but confessions. I haven't touched anyone since my wife passed. You make me feel like I'm not just fixing cars and waiting to die. I answered with movement, with the curve of my body pressed against his, with the way I bit my lip and let my head fall back. Not out of submission, but because I felt powerful for the first time. In months, if you've made it this far. If your heart's racing a little. Your breath caught somewhere mid-sentence. This might be your story too. Help us keep telling. Stories like this one where the lines blur, where the rules bend, where grown-ups get honest. You can support the channel with a super chat or a super sticker. It truly keeps us going. And thank you for staying back in that garage office. I found something I didn't expect. Not lust. Not shame. Not even closure. I found aliveness. We moved together in rhythm. Not polished, not perfect, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was real. Raw, 2 broken people choosing to be whole just for a night when it was over. We stayed like that tangled silence, still breathing hard. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, looked into my eyes, and smiled. I didn't know this was what I needed. He said neither did I. I replied, and I meant every word. We didn't rush to move. It stayed there, curled into the curve of his arm, listening to the ticking of the old wall clock and the soft hum of the shop heater for the first time in a long time. The silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like permission to just be Mr. Carter. Eventually sat up, stretching with a soft groan, and reached for a faded flannel shirt. He handed it to me without a word. I slipped it on. It smelled like motor oil and cedarwood. And strangely, it made me feel safe. He stood at the mini fridge and cracked open a soda, handing it to me like we were teenagers. After sneaking out, I laughed. He did too, low and growly. You got plans for tonight? He asked, sipping from his own can. I shook my head. This was kind of the highlight. He leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. I wasn't lying earlier. You really do remind me I'm still alive most days. I just fix what's broken this. He gestured vaguely between. Us wasn't on the repair list, but it might have fixed something I didn't know. Was cracked. Is mild same. Then after a beat he added, with a smirk, although technically, your alternator still needs replacing. I chuckled. Well, I'm sure we can negotiate. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't heavy. It was just 2 people letting themselves enjoy something real, even if fleeting. Even if undefined. I got dressed slowly and he walked me back out into the dusk. The air was cold but not biting. My car sat there, fixed, humming. Ready. He handed me the keys, his fingers lingering around mine. You don't owe me anything. Madison? You know that. Right, I know I said. But maybe. I'll come back. Just to check if anything else needs fixing. He laughed, then stopped catching. Maya, you're always welcome, but only if you bring that smart mouth with you. Dealey slid into my car, started the engine, and rolled down the window just fair enough to say, Hey, Carter. Yeah, thanks for not making me feel broken. He didn't say anything for a second, then nodded. You're not just a little dented little like the rest of us. I drove off into the quiet Arizona night, the heater blowing warm against my skin, me body still tingling, not just from what we did, but from what it stirred. Wake, not every story ends in forever, some just open a door. You didn't know. You needed a week passed quietly. I went to work. I answered emails. I made myself dinner that didn't taste like cardboard life. Moved on as it always does. But something lingered, not guilt, not shame. Just a low hum beneath the surface of memory. I didn't want to erase that Saturday. My check engine light came on again. Not dramatically. Just enough to give me an excuse. I sat in the driveway for a moment, staring at that little orange symbol. Then I smiled. Maybe it was the alternator. Maybe it wasn't either way. I found myself pulling up to Carter's garage 20 minutes. Later, the sun was low behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the gravel lot. He was outside, wiping his hands on a red rag, leaning over the hood of someone else's truck. He looked up, squinting. Didn't think I'd see you again so soon, he said. Straightening engine light came on. I replied, trying not to sound too eager. He raised an eyebrow. Sure it did. I parked and stepped out, trying not to smile like a teenager. He nodded toward the shop. Same room's free, and so am I. After I finished this carburetor, I followed him into the garage. Everything looked the same. The hum of old tools, the smell of rubber and steel, the quiet steadiness of a man who'd built his world from wrenches and wounds. But it felt different this time. Lighter open, he handed me a soda again. Same brand, Sama Ritual U. Want small talk first or straight to negotiations? I laughed. Missed this sarcasm? You missed more than that, he shot back with a grin. We didn't kiss, we didn't rush. We sat for a while, just talking about nothing and everything. At one point, he said, You're not like most women that walk in here. I raised an eyebrow. Because I actually make eye contact. No, he said, because you leave me wondering what's next, and that's not a bad thing. I looked at him, this roughaging man with steady hands and quiet eyes, and realized I didn't need to define what we were. Sometimes it's enough just to be the reason someone softens, even if only for a moment. I didn't go back to Mr. Carter's garage because I owed him. I went back because something in me had shifted, not because of what we did, but because of how. I felt afterward, unashamed, in control, whole, in a way I hadn't been since before the divorce. The next morning, I found a message from him. No emojis, no pretense. Just, if you ever need more than a mechanic, you know where to find me. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop, made coffee, and began sketching out a plan for my own practice, one where I could help women find their voice again too, where healing didn't mean hiding, where desire wasn't something we whispered about, like shame. That day I felt like I was finally the author of my own story, and isn't that what we're all trying to become? Sometimes what looks like a moral failure on the outside is just survival on the inside. This story isn't about glorifying desperation. It's about showing what it means to reclaim your power in a world that keeps asking you to shrink. If you've ever made a choice that others wouldn't understand, but it brought you back to yourself, then maybe you already know you're not alone and you're not broken. You're just rewriting the rules. If this story stirred something in you, a quiet nod, a loud hell yes, or even a tear you didn't expect, let us know in the comments. Just one word or one dot, we'll read them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you Won't miss the next story because the next one might just be yours.